dear students. So here today we'll be learning a new chapter, the first chapter from your English 1 textbook. The first chapter, that is Anne Bakes a Cake, which was written by L.M. Montgomery. Now, the first thing that we have to know is that Anne Bakes a Cake, it is adapted from the novel, which was again written by L.M. Montgomery. The title is Anne of Green Gables, which was published in 1908. Okay, now in your story, there are three main characters that we'll talk about, and they are Anne Shirley, Marilla Cuthbert, and Mrs. Allen. So all of them, they live in Avonlea. Avonlea being a small and rural community, most of the activities here are, it revolves around the church. And in the church, most of the time, every now and then, new pastors or new ministers are being appointed. So we will find out that Mr. and Mrs. Allen, that they are the new pastors or the new ministers that have been appointed in Avonlea. And being much more educated than the people of Avonlea, Mrs. Allen, she really tried to help the villagers as well as the small kids there. She tried to help them by teaching them or in a local school. Now, as we move on in the following stories, we'll find out that Mr. and Mrs. Allen, they are being invited in Anne Shirley's house for a tea party. And what goes on there, we'll just learn. So in the first paragraph, the new ministers and his wife were a young, pleasant-faced couple, still full of enthusiasm for their chosen life work. Avonlea opened its heart to them from the start. Everyone liked the cheerful young man and the bright, gentle lady who was his wife. Anne felt promptly in love with Mrs. Allen. She had discovered another kindred spirit. So now we find here that Mr. and Mrs. Allen, they were being loved by the people of Avonlea because they had a very cheerful and an energetic, and as well as they have a very pleasant face. They are a very pleasant-faced couple. So people of Avonlea, they greatly welcomed them. They welcomed them with their open arms. And Anne Shirley, she was a young orphan girl who was being adopted by Marilla Cuthbert and Matthew Cuthbert. Both of them were brothers and sisters, but they really loved Anne Shirley. So when Mr. and Mrs. Allen, they came to Avonlea, Anne Shirley, she really liked or loved Mrs. Allen because she find her really sweet. Because whenever they get time, Mrs. Allen, she always tells the students to ask them questions, and Anne Shirley, being someone who just loves asking questions, she was really looking forward to Mrs. Allen. She really liked her. And so in the second paragraph, Mrs. Allen is lovely, she announced. She has taken our class and she is a splendid teacher. She said we could ask her any questions like we liked, and I asked so many. I'm good at asking questions, Marilla. So when back home, she went and then told Marilla that she loved Mrs. Allen, and that Mrs. Allen allowed the students to ask them questions. And as I have said, and she really liked asking questions, so she liked the character of Mrs. Allen. I believe you, was Marilla's reply, because Marilla at that point of time, she was not really interested in listening to Anne Shirley. Okay, so she just said that I believe you in order to stop Anne from speaking further. Now, I suppose we must have Mr. and Mrs. Allen to tea soon, said Marilla collectively. I've heard they have been everywhere but here. Let me see, next Wednesday would be a good time to have them. So Marilla and Matthew, they decided that they will call Mrs. Allen, Mr. and Mrs. Allen, for a small tea party, because they have heard that Mr. and Mrs. Allen have went to every household in Avonlea except to their home. So they decided that on one Wednesday, they'll invite them for a small tea party. Having a minister and his wife for a tea party was a big thing, because they were one of the most important people in the village. When Marilla told Anne that they are going to have Mr. and Mrs. Allen at home for a tea party, and she really got excited, because Mrs. Allen was one whom she adored a lot, whom she liked a lot. So having heard that they are going to come and visit their home for a tea party, she asked Marilla if she could bake a cake, because that is something she is good at. Marilla, she allowed Anne to bake a cake. Now, in the following days, that is Monday and Tuesday, they were really busy in preparing for the tea party because Marilla, she wanted her tea party to be the best or a better one other than the tea party that was hosted in the village, because Mr. and Mrs. Allen was a very important people, and she wanted everything to be the best. So all of them, they really prepared well because Marilla was determined that she should not be outdone by any of the housekeepers in Avonlea. The following day, and she really got excited that she told her friend Diana about whatever that they are going to have Mr. and Mrs. Allen at home for a tea party, and she told that everything is set, everything is ready except for her cake that she is going to prepare on the Wednesday morning, because that will be the day when Mr. and Mrs. Allen will visit them. So she really got excited and told Diana that she has been waiting for this day, that when Mrs. Allen will be visiting them and when she will get a time or a chance to impress her. So when the day come, on a Wednesday morning, she really woke up early. Without notice, she woke up early and then she started preparing for her cake. Though the previous day, because she was playing on a spring, she got a severe cold, but nothing short of pneumonia could stop her. Nothing could stop her, and then she really got prepared herself for the cake that she is going to serve Mrs. Allen. Now, after gathering all the things and after making the cake, she put the prepared cake in the oven, and then she asked Mrs. Allen, not Mrs. Allen, she asked Marilla Cuthbert if the cake will rise, all right, because she was really concerned whether the cake is going to rise or not, as she wanted to impress Mrs. Allen. Then Marilla said, even if the cake did not rise, it's okay because they have plenty of other dishes to serve, not only the cake. So she was excited to watch the cake. When the cake was ready, she took out the cake, and then she found that the cake was fluffy and beautiful and it looked really nice. So she got really happy that she layered it with ruby jellies and imagined that Mrs. Allen eating it and asking for another piece. She was really excited for the cake. So when everything was done, she asked Marilla if she could decorate the table also. Okay, so Marilla told her that yes, go ahead. If you want to decorate the table, you can go and decorate the table. So she decorated all the tables beautifully, so that when Mr. and Mrs. Allen come there, they will notice it and they will get impressed again. So Anne did decorate the table, and in such a manner that when the minister and his wife sat down to eat, they exclaimed together over its loveliness. The minister and his wife, they really liked the decoration of the table. They were really impressed by Anne. So it's Anne's handiwork, said Marilla, and Anne felt that Mrs. Allen's approving smile was almost too much happiness of this world. All went well as could be until Anne's layered cake was passed around. Mrs. Allen helped herself to a plum triangle, as did also the minister and Marilla. Mrs. Allen took a mouthful of hers and a strange expression crossed her face, but she didn't say a word and steadily ate away at it. Marilla saw her expression and quickly tasted the cake. So when the cake was brought in front of them, every one of them, they took a slice of it. Alright, they took a slice of it, and then as soon as Mrs. Allen, she had the cake, she had a very queer expression, or she had a very weird expression in her face. And when Marilla, she saw the expression in Mrs. Allen's face, she quickly went and then tasted the cake. And when she tasted the cake, it was really bitter, because a cake normally is sweet, but that cake was really bitter. So she called out for Anne, and then she kind of asked her that what on earth did she put on the cake that it tasted so bitter. and which flavor did she use. So when Anne was asked that question, Anne told her that she added a vanilla flavor and nothing else. There was nothing else except for the vanilla flavor that she used. When Marilla heard that, she asked Anne to go and bring the vanilla bottle to her. Right, because just to check that whether she had really put the vanilla flavor in the cake, because if she had put the vanilla flavor, the cake will not taste that bitter. So Anne, she quickly went, she took the vanilla bottle and then she brought it to Manila. She bought the bottle, and when she bought the bottle, Marilla took the bottle, she opened it and then she smelled it. Right? So when she smelled the bottle, she find out that Anne was not using um, vanilla flavor. Instead, she used a pen reliever that was anodine liniment. Right? Because the previous day or a few days back, Marilla, she by mistakenly she broke the pen reliever, the bottle of the pen reliever, and in order to put the pen reliever to somewhere, she took the empty vanilla bottle and then she poured all the pen reliever there, and she forgot to tell Anne about what happened. So partly she was also at fault that because of her the cake did not went good, but she did not try to take the blame on her. Instead, she tried to put all the blame, the whole blame on Anne, that she could have at least smelled the bottle to check whether it has a vanilla flavor or a pen reliever. Having been scolded by Marilla, and she burst into tears with this double disgrace. So she said that she could not smell the medicine because she had a cold, and because of which she could not have the smell of whether it is vanilla or the medicine. Then so when she just cried, she just went into her room and then she flung herself into the bed and she started crying. Soon a light step sounded on the stairs and somebody entered the room. Somebody entered the room where she was crying. Now, oh Marilla, sobbed Anne without looking up, I'm disgraced forever. I shall never be able to live this down. Diana will ask me how my cake turned out and I shall have to tell her the truth. I shall always be pointed as a girl who flavored a cake with anodine liniment. The boys in school will never get over laughing at it. Oh, Marilla, I cannot even look Mrs. Allen in the face again. Perhaps she'll think I tried to poison her, but the liniment isn't poisonous. Wouldn't you tell Mrs. Allen so, Marilla? She thought that the one who entered the room was Marilla, and so she told her how she was feeling at that point of time. She told her that the boys in her classroom, the boys in her school, they are going to laugh at her, saying that she could not even make a difference of a medicine and a vanilla flavor. So she was really worried about it, and plus she thought that Mrs. Allen, she might think that a student she tried to, or and she tried to poison her. So she asked Marilla if she could just go and tell Mrs. Allen that she did not try to poison her. In fact, anodine liniment is not poisonous, so it is not going to harm her. Now, suppose you tell her so yourself, said a kind voice, and jumped up to find Mrs. Allen standing by her bed looking at her with laughing eyes. So the one standing next to her was not Marilla, but Mrs. Allen. She was the one whom Anne just spoke about. My dear little girl, you mustn't cry like this, she said. It's all just a funny mistake that anybody might make. Oh no, it takes me to make such a mistake, Anne said sadly, and I wanted to make such a nice cake for you, Mrs. Allen. So she again, when she found out that it was Mrs. Allen, she tried to tell her that she thought it was Marilla, so she just spoke what she had in her mind. And Marilla, on the other hand, Mrs. Allen, she tried to console her or convince her that nothing is wrong. This kind of small mistake, it happens quite often in life. So she did not worry about the effect of it, or that Mrs. Allen is not going to like her. Anything like that will not happen, so she should stay positive. And in order to distract her from her embarrassment, or in order to overcome her embarrassment, Mrs. Allen, she asked Anne if she could show her their garden, and they can have a light talk at that time. So Anne, she just got up and then took Mrs. Allen to show her their garden, and in that process she had a light conversation with Mrs. Allen. And when the guests were gone, when the guests, that is Mr. and Mrs. Allen, they were gone, she told Marilla that it was not that bad that she put anodine liniment in the cake, because if the cake had been perfect, then Mrs. Allen, she is just going to have the cake and then smile at her, and then she'll just appreciate her in that manner. But because she made a mistake, she got a chance to talk to Mrs. Allen and have a conversation which she really liked. So she thought that even though she made a mistake, it was not that big a mistake that she should be ashamed of. In fact, she had a really good evening that day. In the end, Anne told Marilla that though she made a mistake, she is someone who never repeats her mistake again. Alright? So at that point, Marilla, she pointed out that she is not going to make the same mistake again, but she is going to make another mistake because she has been doing this. She is someone who makes mistakes regularly. Okay? So, and she takes everything positively. Though she makes a mistake, she is not someone who just used to think about that or let that mistake, let any mistake affect her life. So she always stays positive. And so she said that their mistakes have some limit. She told Marilla that mistakes have some limit, and when she runs out of mistakes, she'll stop making mistakes. Alright, at some certain age, when she reaches some certain age, she will stop making the mistake. That is what she replied, Marilla, thinking that mistakes should not let it affect her life. So this is the end of the chapter, where we learned about a young girl named Anne Shirley, how she overcome her mistakes, how she was excited to do anything just to impress an adult that she liked very much.
Stay home, stay safe, do it for yourself, do it for your family, do it for India. Let's break the chain of COVID-19. हम हो गए कामयाब.